Hey everyone, Julie Hirschberg here. I'm going to apologize right up front. I have a little bit of a cold and sound a little under the weather, but it's all good. I got my kombucha and I'm ready to go. So tonight I'm super excited because I get to follow up with Erin Cottle's talk last time about student programs, and she talked a lot about the stuff that we do at Reactive to really attract and keep just the greatest students ever. And I really mean that. We have had the best students. So tonight, as a follow-up, we're going to talk all about how we structure our student program so that we can save time and money. And this is all, some of this is in the blog post, but I mentioned in the blog post, one of the things that I found after getting Reactive started and having students right away, because I love students, I just really feel so strongly about investing in the future of the profession that I wanted to have students. And when I actually did some of the calculations, like, okay, what does this really mean for the business? I was just really astonished that it was losing us at least $2,000 for every student. And we're a really small business. That's a really big deal. So one of the things that I really looked at is how can we structure a program so that we can save money, save time, do what we love with students, but be able to do it in a way that works for a business. And we have figured that out. So I'm super excited to share that with you. And I wanted to first touch on a few questions that people had posted to our private Facebook group. And if you haven't been to it, you definitely should. It's called Neuro Collaborative Professionals. It's a closed private group, so you can post more questions. We can respond more intimately with answers, things like that. You don't have to be afraid of anything you post. So I definitely encourage you to post there. And there were a few questions that came up specifically on this question. So one of the questions was from Alex, who always has the best questions. Thank you, Alex. She asked the question about, and I'm sorry I don't have it right in front of me, but it was about whether we ever have two students to one CI. And I have actually not had that at Reactive, and I'll tell you, mostly that's because of space. We are really, really cramped for space. And that would just make it crazy. If you don't know, we share space with a couple other practices, and even just for having like a desk to sit at and write notes, which students kind of need because they're working on notes and things like that, that just hasn't worked for us to have more than one student. But I'll tell you from my experience, my last clinical that I did a long time ago, but it was at Rancho, was 2 students to 1 CI, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. I loved interacting with another student and bouncing ideas off them. And we do have more students at the same time, but with different CIs, and they actually really love to be together, and I found that really beneficial. And our team works so closely together that a lot of times those students are actually working with each other, with the patient, or things like that. So I think it's really beneficial. I think it's beneficial in the neuro world to potentially have 2 students to 1 CI. Another question that Claire brought up, I see Claire here, hi, was about what are the expectations for productivity for students. So when we have a student for 16 weeks, which is typical of like the last internship for a student, we have them get up to a full caseload. So that's 6 to 8 patients a day that they're planning for, they're documenting on, they're following up with their needs such as equipment, family phone calls, emails, things like that. So they're managing that whole kind of whole person approach to the patient for 6 to 8 patients per day. So that is probably on average about 30 patients per week that they are managing. And it doesn't mean that we might not be there supervising or co-treating because of the Medicare rules and things like that, but they are planning and in charge of those patients. So they really get to that full caseload. And then finally, Jennifer Anderson asked this great question about what do we do about blocking schedules for our therapists, for mentoring time, for reviewing articles, for things like that. And I mentioned this in the blog post too. We do this typically a half an hour at the beginning of the day and the half an hour at the end of the day. And that might be time that would be originally set up for documentation time, but with the student, that's more mentoring time. And then what tends to happen, especially as the student gets more and more proficient with notes, that time the student's doing most of the notes for the day, so the therapist is doing less. So it ends up actually equaling out or really saving time, especially at the end of day for notes, which is really cool. The other thing I would say is that because we have a lot of continuing education ongoing at our clinic, we have our fellowship, we have a lot of learning modules, the students are a big part of that. So that's something we're all doing and learning together. And so that's really great mentoring time for the students as well. That's just built into all of our schedules. They're also part of our planning meetings. We plan and talk about difficult patient cases and talk with our OT about our shared patients. We have one of those this week. So the students are a part of that, and that's just part of our regular staff time, and it's part of mentoring the students as well. So there's a lot of ways that we build that mentorship into time that we have already set aside for our own learning. And then what I mentioned in the blog post, and I think, let me see, that was maybe under number 4, was that we, within the schedule, we have set up this automatic learning, online learning modules for the students so that we spend less time kind of pulling up documents and looking at what we might want to talk about. We have them do that ahead. So all of our time together is just discussion and learning and mentoring. So that is part of the freebie that we have tonight, is how we organize all those learning modules, what are the topics and things like that. I'm happy to share that with you all. This is something that has just worked for our clinic, but maybe something similar would work for yours. And we have a lot of those articles and things. We would love to share those with you. Just let me know, drop us a line. So those were some really great questions, and those really got me thinking when I started thinking about all of the different things we do at Reactive to have the successful student program. And I have to tell you, we have a 6-week student, 2 of them that started today, Amy and Heather from USC. Amazing. They're so amazing. And when they started with me today, and I'm a little under the weather, like this made me think of another benefit. I'm a little lethargic, I was cold, I don't want to be all up in a patient's face very much. Well, having a student there meant, you know what, I could go to work today, we could get it done. Heather brings such amazing energy and great insights and things for my patients that I felt like, gosh, they got such great care today, even though I'm under the weather, and I was so thankful. So if any of you are thinking, I don't know if I should have a student, I want you to think of so many of these little hidden benefits, not only that you're so committed to the future PT and what students bring to that, especially in neuro PT, but that there's all of these hidden benefits for you and your clinic. So when we talked about 5 steps, it really is only 4, because the first step Erin talked about last week, and that is finding the perfect student. Once you find that perfect student, all of these other steps really fall into place. So number 1 is finding that student. If you didn't catch that one, I highly recommend it. Erin was awesome. The blog post is awesome. All about finding and interviewing that perfect student. The second, and this is like my number 1, and I thought about this today as Heather and I started with patients, was how I think about my students and how they think about themselves and how my patients think about them. So a little caveat here, at Reactive, we have a lot of patients that pay cash out of pocket, or it's out of network and they're paying a lot out of their pocket. And so they may be specifically coming to see a neurologic specialist and a DPT, and then they have a student here. So I feel really strongly that I really want them to see this student as a high value for them. So when Heather and I started today, I go, hey, who did she meet for the first time today? I know we talked about this with one of my patients, and I said, hey, Heather has all this great background in research, because she does. She was at OHSU with Faye Horak, like, whoa, that's so awesome. So she has all this great background. She has all these great techniques. She's fresh out of some great work with professors. And she and I talked this morning, and we have these fantastic ideas. And right away, that one of our patients was like, wow, I'm so impressed with your students. They know so much. And I'm like, I know, it's amazing. So thinking of your student as a colleague, introducing them to your patients as such. Now, you can't call them a PT. In fact, I guess in California, you can't even call them an intern. You have to call them a student. And so I introduce them as a doctor of physical therapy student in their third year of the doctoral program. And I think it really sets the bar high. Patients are impressed. They're like, wow, that's really impressive. You studied for how long? You've done what? They ask questions, and they really get to know the students from the get-go. And then the student has confidence, I have confidence, the patient has confidence, and it's a win-win-win for everybody. And when you're running a practice that has a high load of cash-based or out-of-network, if the student's going to be independent, you have to build them up to your patients so your patients will see them. So I think that's really one of the most important things. One of the other things that I really see our students coming in as is business partners. So this is, maybe if you're tuning in and you don't own a private practice, this is for next year when you open your own practice. But I structure our student time with us so that they are really thinking like a business partner. Our office is very transparent about how we run things, what we use, what kind of income we're bringing in, expenses, all of those things, and the students are part of that. They will do a project where they help analyze the profitability of a program, for example. And that's actually been a project that is part of a USC requirement, but we've incorporated that for everybody. They will also plan and run programs like wellness programs. We had one student, Jack Chan, he led a kickboxing program. It was awesome. Patients were really into that. And every student has brought a different skill to the table and been able to lead a program. And I think when you start thinking of your student as a business partner, as a colleague, you're treating them as such, and they start thinking like that. So a couple other little things that we've had students do are write blogs for us and film videos. So we have a lot of patient education videos, and we have the students do those as well, which has been really awesome. I think we even just posted one to our Facebook page today. But they're educating patients all of the time, and we just have them put that into a video and put that on our website. So super helpful to have the student as a business partner, and this really helps the bottom line. So colleague, business partner, and gosh, this next one, I really have to thank our office manager, Brittany. She leads the way in this next one, and that is because she is a schedule goddess, and I guess you could be a god. Unless you men want to be a goddess, you could be a goddess. But she is amazing at this. So basically, one of the things that we have set up is that our students, especially for Medicare, we do a lot of overlap time. So we all know that we can't bill Medicare for the student's time alone. So often what we'll do with a patient is that the student and I might have a little of overlap time, maybe 15 minutes, where I'm just checking in, okay, you know, Heather's working with you today. You know Heather, that's fabulous. We'll bill only for those 15 minutes because that's all that's allowed by law. And she sees the person for the rest of the hour for 45 minutes on her own. She documents that as unbillable time. And I can see another patient. She can be independent, and it's great. So that's one way that we can get more people seen, especially really, really busy times, get the student more independent and not be doing these crazy, illegal, unethical things with Medicare. So that is really a very important part. And that is tricky from a scheduling standpoint. So that is something that we've had to get our office manager, our staff, all of us really thinking like, okay, here's somebody that can overlap and then this person can weave in and things like that. And I know that happens a lot more in outpatient ortho than neuro. And I think, you know, in neuro, we have more Medicare. We have more people that are a little more complex, and that's just not as simple to happen. And I think sometimes in neuro, we don't think of all those ways that we could potentially double book people in a legal and ethical way. So that has been really, really helpful. We've also had our office manager make sure to block those times at the beginning and the end of schedules in order to get our day started. So basically, we kind of plan for our day and then recap at the end of the day. I've got to tell you this too. This we just found in the last year. It's called Wonderlist. I'm curious if anybody uses that. Some people just use it for a to-do list, and I realize I should kind of log in here and see if there's any comments as we're going. Let me check here. So Wonderlist is this phenomenal app that we all use in the business as a reactive team, but okay, a couple comments there. We started using it with our students, and it's great. So basically, we could put non-PHI info. So we have a kind of little code language for our patients' names. We have them in the list, and then I'll tell. So Heather, she started Monday morning. Over the weekend, I said, okay, Heather, here's who you need to plan for. You can go in the medical record, review their documentation, plan for this, this, and this, and you'll document on these people. And what do you think is the evidence for this person and MS and what we can get done in 4 weeks? And I posed all these questions to her. She came back. She posted articles I could read through. And then actually, as we go throughout her day, we're looking at Wunderlist going, oh, what did we plan for the day? And kind of looking through. And even as she is working with a patient, if I'm kind of supervising and watching, I'll actually put comments in Wonderlist like, what were you thinking when you progressed that exercise and the patient totally failed, or things like that. So I can kind of reflect in the moment and give her some feedback without doing it embarrassingly in front of the patient, which I really don't like to do. So that's something that's been super helpful. Wonderlist, it's W-U instead of W-O, but Wonderlist is the app. That has been a major time saver. We used to have these long email chains about patients because I often will work, like this happened with Heather today, we'll work all day and then I gotta run and pick up my kids from school. So I'll be like, oh, I'll catch you in Wonderlist, we'll reflect, we'll talk about it, we'll catch up the next morning. So that has been a really, really big time saver. And you know what? I think what I realized as I had more and more students is, you know, I thought I had to have like an hour at the end of the day and we had to reflect and this, and you know, that's really lovely, but we don't actually need that. We can get it done in a lot of different and creative ways, and it still works really well, and the students have a great, great experience. Okay, my throat is dying. I need another sip of kombucha. By the way, it's not beer, it's kombucha, but it does look like a beer bottle, my dad pointed out to me. Anyway, the last thing, and this has been such a big success for us in the clinic, is getting the students in the community. So a part of our reactive mission is to be a part of the community, educating the community, and just serving. And through our students, we've been able to do a big part of that. Our students are a big part of any pro bono services that we do. In fact, without our students, we probably see about 10 to 15% of our clientele is pro bono, and a lot of that is done with students. So it's like our little mini pro bono clinic, and that makes my heart so happy. That's just one of my loves. Another thing that we started just last year was this free FSH screening day. So we partner with the FSH Society. This is fascioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, a rare form of adult onset muscular dystrophy, but they have this great organization, and it's a group that we really love. They're just dynamic and really, really about the people and education, and it's just a great organization. Anyway, we have partnered with them to provide a free screening day, and people from all over Southern California have come to our clinic. The students are booked from morning till through their afternoon with free screens, balance, strength, movement, basically anything under the sun. Doing a quick screen, giving them some education, some educational handouts to provide to other therapists in other parts of Southern California. And it's been such a great way to give to this organization, to the community, and live out what we do, our mission of Reactive. And really, this is actually not something I've calculated, but I know this in the end really affects our bottom line. And because our mission of being in the community is, we give and we give and we give, and I think the community really supports us as well. So it's really been an amazing synergy. One of the other things that it brings is that it's all this great time that the students are screening a whole multitude of people with the same disorder, and it's a really unique disorder. So they're learning a ton about FSH, and by the time they leave their clinic, I consider them like, gosh, they're like the next expert in this rare disorder, because not very many people know about it. So again, I think that's so huge for student learning and just kind of the future of physical therapy. So there you have it. We went through basically 5 time-saving, money-saving tips for your student program. We talked about first finding that perfect student, having students as your colleagues, and in that we talked about our learning module, and I saw Michelle's little note that she would love to see what some of our learning modules are. So definitely I'll send those your way. Thinking of the students as your business partner, really becoming a scheduling goddess to make it happen so that you can have a full schedule, your student can have a full schedule with the neuro population, and then finally getting in the community. So these are ways that we have been able to turn our student program from a money loser to a money maker. That's amazing. And it's really been a way that we can continue to have more students. So every year we're having more and more students, and that makes me so happy. One thing I want to tell you, I mentioned this at the beginning, join our private Facebook group. It's really where the good discussion happens. We're really excited to discuss some things, and we've been getting into some great clinical discussions, and I'm excited to kind of see the Neuro Collaborative group move that way as well, because I know all of us get super excited about the clinical piece of things. So join our Neuro Collaborative Professionals Facebook. Come over to visit us online, iloveneuro.com, and under student programs, you can grab our free interview questions that Erin talked about last week, as well as the one from this week, which is the whole outline of how we do our learning modules with our students. So great. Really hope to see you guys on here next time. And I see a few more comments here. Michelle saying, yeah, we're in a tight space in my clinic too. Hoping to convince my colleagues to let me take a student soon. You know what is so funny? We share space, and today we shared half of our space. So we share it with iSports PT. They have like 5 huge athletes come in at a time. I mean, they're humongous, like NBA players, hockey players, you name it. They're in there, we're in there, the 2 students are in there, we're running some movement analysis screens. It was chaotic, but you know what was interesting was actually having a student kind of helped ease the flow. Like they could be on the lookout, oh, here comes a patient, let's direct them this way so they're not tripping on this guy's big foot and stuff like that. So anyway, Michelle, I totally encourage you to go, you know what, maybe a student actually helps with the space a little bit. That's how I was feeling today, at least. And Claire, I've been thinking about you a lot because you could totally have a student in your non-traditional setting. So Claire has a practice that's all wellness, exercise classes, and we have our students, that's the biggest part of what they do is wellness. They lead the classes, they help out with the classes, they have made really creative ways to help people pay and sign in for classes and take blood pressure and all of that stuff. It has been amazing. We could not have our wellness program without our students, and that is a big reason why we have been able to turn losing money into, breaking even, making money with the student program is because the wellness programs. So Claire, I think you got it in the bag. I think that would be awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks for putting up with me. I feel better talking to you all and having my kombucha. And we'll see you next time. Bye.